Well, hello there. I'm Tracy Resch-Williams, business coach and consultant for Alaska Tracy. Businesses work with me that are seeking calmness, clarity, and prosperity. Using my vision mapping framework, I guide them on their journey to success. On this podcast, you can enjoy hearing inspirational stories of success, as well as business tips and tools that you can actually use. So thanks for joining in. And please remember, click the subscribe button, invite your friends, and leave a comment. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Alaska Tracy podcast, episode 51. Holy cow, it's been 51 episodes. I just got my microphone and my headset fixed thanks to my wonderful, incredible husband. It's been sitting on my desk since I moved to my home office 2 years ago, and it was a simple tweak. And sometimes, well, I have a hard time asking for help. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah. I'm going to talk to you today about something that has been going on and a shift that has happened in my life. And a lot of the podcast episodes before this one and coming up in the next month, I was going to say September because I'm recording at the end of August 2020. So a lot of the episodes are with people that have been literally placed in my lap through, I like to say, divinity. And that's sort of the theme of my life. And I bet it's a theme of your life as well, that we tend to attract people to us in line or aligned with what we're actually going through in life. If you think back to situations that you've been going through or that you had gone through in life, and you think about the people that have appeared in your life as teachers, as guides, as friends, and think about how they may have helped you or you have helped them, or maybe they were going through something really similar. So that has been what has been happening for me, and I'm going to share about that. First, I want to invite you to join Patreon, my Patreon account. It's Patreon, patreon.com/Alaska Tracy. And it is an inexpensive way for you and I to get to know each other better. Very inexpensive. I'm talking $5 a month. And the reason for this is my goal this year is to reach as many people as possible with the goal to help them. And when I help you, I get to help myself. So it might be a little selfish, but the goal is to help find calmness, clarity, and prosperity in our life. So I do have a women's membership community. It's called Visions to Profits Women's Membership. And that's on my website, alaskatracy.com. And that is for $47 a month or $37 a month. Doors have just opened, if you're listening to this, fourth quarter of 2020. It was brought to my attention from one of the members, I call visionaires, that Patreon is a less expensive way for people to connect to me and me to connect to you. So it is my offering, one of my offerings on there, they're called tiers, is $5 per month. And with $5 per month, you get access to all my videos and special videos that I'll be sending your way. 5 mindset growth videos a week. So 5 mindset growth videos a week. And I would welcome you to this very special group. I have just started it, like I said, if you're listening to this in the fall of 2020, and the first 10 patrons that I get, I will put everybody's name into a hat and pick one name, and send that lucky person Vision Journal by Alaska Tracy, my fun vision journal that is on Amazon.com. It is a really fun guided vision journal, guided through meditation. And it has lots of doodles on it, lots of fun doodles. So patreon.com, Alaska Tracy, $5 a month gets you a lot of access to me and some great videos on marketing, on life tips, on all sorts of goodness. So thank you for supporting that in advance. It occurred to me back in June that as I was procrastinating, uploading content to the Visions to Profits membership, they have a membership portal that they can go in and they can get all their content. And it was the night before the upload, so it was the end of May, and I hadn't gotten all the material done. And it occurred to me that I was a major procrastinator, go figure. And also that I have this beautiful podcast with beautiful listeners like yourself listening in that I had been sitting idle with. So I created a strategy for the podcast, for this podcast. It's what I teach. It's what I teach. Create a strategy with the actions, schedule implementing the actions, and watch the results happen. And the results are often way beyond our wildest dreams. Well, I hadn't done that with the podcast. So if I was thinking it was going to grow, I'm not sure where I got that idea from, because there was no structure, there were no actions, there was no follow through. So I was determined to go ahead and put the actions in place. What that's looked like since June, so this is the end of the third month, is gearing the podcast episodes to a theme each month. The theme comes from the membership. Within the membership, I theme each month. For instance, June, the theme was structure. July, accountability. August, meditation. September, beginnings. October, purpose, and so on. So the guests that would appear on the podcast would sort of align with the theme. And that's the way it's rolled. The last couple episodes, which will be coming after this, we went a little bit off the theme, but actually the interviewees, my guests on the podcast, they were totally in sync with the theme. We didn't talk about the theme. However, they were in sync with the theme. And so the episodes are really geared towards giving the membership community more tools and tips. And what has happened is, guess what's happened? This podcast has grown. And people in my community on social media, in life, are listening to the podcast. They're actually downloading the podcast. Imagine that. So that was a really wonderful, wonderful revelation. Back in March, when this whole COVID thing started happening, I had an angry bull moose charge me. I wasn't in a great place to begin with. That the night before, I had canceled a trip to Sedona to speak at a women's event, because the reality is I was riddled with fear. I wasn't feeling that great. And then the next day I went hiking. The snow was up to my waist. I had an inner feeling that I really shouldn't be going where I was going hiking. And I did it anyways. Has that ever happened to you, where you've had a intuition to not do something and you've gone ahead and done it anyways? Well, that's what happened. I got to the trailhead. It was a Friday, I believe, or a Saturday. I can't really even remember what day it was. I'd have to look back in my journal. And there were snow machiners on the trails. In Anchorage, Alaska, that doesn't happen very often, every couple of years. And I had this, again, intuitive feeling that I shouldn't be there, that the animals were going to be terrified. It was one of those feelings of, I really shouldn't be here, and I'm going to ignore my intuition and I'm going to go hike anyways. So, German Shepherd puppy Chansey and I headed out on the trail. We were up a hill. There were no trees around. Snow was deep, except for the trail. And young bull moose was on the trail to the left. So I got to this one place. I looked to the left. I saw the bull moose. And all of a sudden, he was pissed off. His hackles went straight up. And I thought, oh my goodness. Now, moose can't run zigzag. So we often run to trees or run zigzag. There were no trees. There was no zigzagging. It was a very narrow path. And running from an animal up here in Alaska is not a good idea, ever. I ran. I started running down this hill, and moose can run really, really, really fast. It was running so fast behind me, I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. Fear kicked in like it has never kicked in ever. I don't think I've ever been so fearful in my life. I put my hands on my head, I think, and I crouched down, I think. It's like what I remember, but I don't know. I have no idea really what I did. All I know for certain is that I screamed as loud as I could from somewhere so deep within inside of me. As the moose, I don't even know if it was going to charge me or if it was chasing Chansey. I have no idea. She wears an e-collar, which is collar law up here. She's trained with it. We trained with a trainer. We didn't just go buy an e-collar and stick it on her and hope for the best. We trained for months with her. An e-collar is by leash law, a leash. I didn't have a leash connected to her and I. She came running as fast as she could to me when she heard me scream, and then took the moose for a run down the trail. Off they went, out of my sight. I was terrified. I walked back up the hill to the intersection there, and I called my husband. I was shaking, I was crying. I said, oh my goodness, I don't know where Chansey is. And he said, well, she's recall trained. Call her back. So I called her back, and she came back right away. I ran into a lady, actually 80-year-old lady who's been hiking up there for years and years. And she said the same thing had just happened to her. So we walked back all the way around a different route she showed me to get back to my car. I was shaking. I got home, I fell on my knees, and I just cried. I think I took an Epsom salts bath that night, and I woke up the next day with a pain in my chest, my throat, everything hurt. And then all these symptoms started happening to me. Pain in my chest, rapid heartbeat, unable to eat. I lost 10 pounds within a week. But before I go on to that, past that first week, 3 days in, I was feeling dizzy, and I had started feeling dizzy a little bit before that. I was doing this intermittent fasting for months, and intermittent fasting is great. It works for a lot of people. There's fine print with it that says if you have any bulimic issues, if you have any food issues, anorexic issues, bulimia issues, do not do this. I'm a recovering bulimic and still have food issues, obviously, from time to time. And so I was stretching the fast out. So I would stop eating at like 8 o'clock at night, And some days I wouldn't eat till 2, 3 the next day. I was working out a couple times a week, going to the gym, I was probably at the gym 3, 4 times a week. I was walking every day. I wasn't nourishing my body. And so I was starting to feel dizzy even before this, and I was drinking tons of coffee. So after the moose attack happened, I was feeling really, really dizzy, and my heart was just beating out of my chest. And I believe it was the Wednesday after, I ended up going over to the fire department, and they took my blood pressure. It was really high for me. I'm usually super low. They always ask me if I'm a runner. It's so low usually. And they took me to the hospital. And then it was just a series of symptoms and not being able to eat, no appetite. My chest hurt all the time. My heart would beat and beat and beat and beat. I couldn't sleep. I don't get ill. I don't take supplements. I barely take a vitamin. And I rarely get ill. I was convinced that I had a heart issue, that I had something terminal. My husband, who has, I'm going to probably start crying, who has this incredible faith and belief. And my husband is just this amazing rock in my life. And he was never afraid. He never thought I was ill. He supported me, he loved me through all these different doctors, all these different tests. I went to the Heart Institute. I had a heart monitor on. I had a heart ultrasound. I used up my $5,000 insurance deductible, and finally circled back to an old MD that I had years ago. She was convinced that I had something, thought it was thyroid. My thyroid had numerous blood tests. It seemed every week I was giving blood and more tests, and the symptoms remained. And a couple of people suggested I might have anxiety, that they were similar symptoms to what they had experienced throughout the years. And at one point, I wanted somebody to tell me that it was anxiety and maybe give me something for it. I would pray that it was my thyroid. I would pray that it was something, because every test kept coming back that I was fine and I was healthy, and I'd be relieved to know. I've always known I was super healthy. I just was so confused. This MD was confused too. I suggested anxiety, and she said, "You've never had anxiety before. We are going to get to the bottom of this." So she sent me to an endocrinologist. More tests were done, and he couldn't find anything. He spent an hour and a half with me talking about life. He's quite a bit older and very wise man, and gave me some really good nuggets of life tips and things about being a high achiever. I didn't understand everything he was saying to me and the stories he was sharing with me. As the weeks would go by, it started making more sense. He must have a psychology degree, because some of the stories he shared with me were riveting. I believe he was trying to figure out perhaps something that shook me to my core to make all these symptoms happen. As I was struggling through all this, people were appearing left and right in my business and my life. Podcast guests that you'll hear if you go back and listen. Teachers, they were just appearing everywhere, everywhere. Visions to Profits members, women, men, all sorts of people were appearing and telling me things, golden nuggets. I went back to my old chiropractor, who I don't even like to call him that. He does this technique called active release technique. And years ago, I thought I would never run or hike again. And he worked on my knee for weeks, 2, 3 weeks. And by the fourth week, I was moving around. I was doing stairs. I was hiking. He's really good. It's almost like deep tissue massage, but it's just incredible, the work that he does. So I circled back to him 5 weeks ago for a hip that was really bothering me, and it seemed to be getting worse. And the worse my hip would get, the more heart palpitations, the tighter my chest would get. And there's an episode of the woman who, again, it's episode 48, Dawn Penzak. If you go back and listen to Dawn's podcast interview, she appeared through a membership course that I had taken, and I'm involved with a group of people, like thousands of them, that have taken this membership course. And how did she appear? Maybe I asked for podcast guests. I have no idea how we connected. We connected, and she was sharing her story on episode 48. And as she was sharing her story, I started crying through the interview, and told her that I was having a lot of those symptoms that she was describing. After we interviewed, she gave me a tapping session, and then I booked her for a tapping session, and all of this fear came out. If you've never heard of tapping, go back and listen to episode 48. I had never heard of it. I had no idea what was going to happen when I booked that session. And I booked it after the endocrinologist called me back and said, I did not find anything. All I can tell you is what I see. What I see is you're fine. I'm not sure what the next step is. I'm going to send you back to your MD. And that was when I booked a call with Dawn. Within that hour of tapping with Dawn, it was as if 10 therapy sessions happened. And I've done therapy throughout the years of my life, throughout the years, 22 years, almost 22 years of being sober and living a spiritual life and meditating. I've done a lot of work on fears and old issues. Well, during this tapping session with Dawn, all sorts of fears came out. I was blown away that I could still have all those fears. Within the next couple of days, I saw Weston at Interactive Health. If you listen to Brian Yelverton's episode, you'll hear about Interactive Health and Weston and acupuncture. I was seeing Weston, and we were discussing all these symptoms, and he said, I would think your MD would next go to digestive issues and maybe send you to a digestive gastremic specialist. And then I said, hey, doesn't Brian do acupuncture in the office? And Weston said, yes, actually he does. And a lot of what you're talking about, he works with people with digestive issues. Brian was there that day. I sat and talked to him, and he shared about people that he works with and a lot of the fears and the trauma that they have in life, and post-traumatic stress syndrome, which I never even believed in that before the moose. He gave me these little, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see me pointing to these little tiny needles. You can't hardly even see them. They're right they're right on my clavicle, and they stay right in there. And those are a lot of pressure points right in there that relieve a lot of anxiety. So I booked a session with Brian, and he's given me deeper meditations to do, almost some very specific intentional meditations. I had never tried acupuncture. We'd taken Eddie the dog to acupuncture before throughout the years. I had never tried it. Something's happened. I was taking a little pill to kind of help calm my heart down, and It's the only non-addictive pill that the doctors all along the way could come up with. This old doctor gave it to me, and it's called hydroxyzine. And it's, from what the pharmacist said, a step up from Benadryl. And so I would take a half of one of those if I would feel the symptoms coming on. And I haven't had to take a pill in 4 weeks. I despise pills. I barely take Advil. I have to be pretty much having a screaming headache or pain to take one Advil. So to take anything was way out of my comfort zone. So I have not taken one in 4 weeks. I've been seeing Brian every week for acupuncture. I'm week 5 and working through all sorts of fears through meditation, through less social media, through connecting with my community, both social media and personal community, in a more authentic way, sitting in the hot tub every night, meditating, reading at night. I'm reading such amazing books. Anxiety is real. I was the last to know. I had no idea, none. Meditation is powerful. Being able to control your heart rate, which controls everything in our body, our digestive system, our everything. I've gained 4 pounds back. I was at a scary weight. I had told somebody years ago I wouldn't go below a certain weight. For me, it's probably higher than other people, but it's a very small size for me. And I was at that weight, and I was really getting a little nervous about that. There's so many things that I hope I never take for granted again. Life, movement, walking every day, having this amazing business, being able to share the real stuff that's going on in my life with you, and then teachers appearing to help me, to help you, and share their experiences on this podcast, giving you tools and tips that you can use. Wow. One of the visionaires said, your last several months of podcast episodes are amazing. And you know what, everyone who's listening, it's not me. I'm being guided. I'm letting go daily. I'm saying, okay, God, you've got this. I clearly don't. So take it away. Let me know where you would like me to be of maximum service to your children. And sometimes I have to do that several times a day. Let go, because I like to take back the control. I'll be driving and my hands will be gripped to the steering wheel as I'm thinking of my 20 million tasks to do and the things that, my head just busy. I teach vision mapping, and my vision mapping framework is all about guiding people to create a plan, connecting their heart to their head, because we often lead with our head. I often lead with my head. Ego tells me I need to be, right? And I forget to check into my heart. So the vision mapping framework is about connecting our hearts to our heads and making sure that goal we're writing on paper is really the goal that our heart wants us to be going in, that direction. And then outlining all the steps necessary to get to that goal, to achieve that goal. And then lining up people that we are accountable to, because life is going to happen and we are going to want to jump ship. I have wanted to jump ship. We are going to get fearful. Things are going to happen in life. We're all immune to things happening in our lives that are going to derail us. So having that person, those people, Visions to Profits membership, a community that gets to know you, that's outside of your house, My husband used to say, why don't you pay me? Why are you paying that coach to help you? Why don't you pay me? I tell you the same thing. Well, guess what? I can't hear it from him. So having people outside of our homes and businesses that we can show up on a regular basis and we can share struggles, we can share successes, we can share challenges. They can help celebrate us and they can remind us why we chose that goal that we chose as we're wanting to derail. And then, as a visionaire reminded me yesterday in our weekly call, she's got her tracking system all lined up. And I teach that tracking system. And there she is. She's tracking. She's making sure that she's moving forward. And if she's moving backwards, what is the plan to pivot to get back on course? So she tracks. And I think she tracks weekly. So a tracking system, a measuring system. Otherwise, how do we know if we're growing, if we're getting closer to that goal, or if we're backsliding and we need to pivot? That's all stuff I teach in my vision mapping framework. And yet there was so much fear blocking. How can you teach when you're blocked, when you're riddled, when you're a walking bundle of fear? And so by sharing all this with you and the breakthroughs that I've had in the last few months, by having this new awareness, I'm able to share with you, move through the anxiety, move through the fears, and become a better version of who God, higher power, universe, whatever you choose to call a being outside of yourself. I choose to say God for simplicity. So moving closer to what God would have me be instead of what I think I should be for you, for him, for her, for them, the dogs. That's what it's all about for me, is to get closer to this God that I really don't understand, that I can turn everything over to, and then I can take actions towards the goals that I think that's the direction I'm supposed to be going per my heart, and then let go of the results and see what really happens. And I'm thrilled to see what's going to happen. September is coming up here as I'm recording this, and it's a month for me of beginnings, and that's why I themed it beginnings for the Prophets Visions to Prophets membership. It has always been about changes in the fall in my life, and I feel it in other people's lives too. The energy is shifting, and there's a change in the air, and there's a change in the world right now as I'm recording this. We're still in the pandemic and navigating our way. I'm not even going to say through it, because that would imply that there's another that there's an end to it, right? And it's all just a journey. Like, it's all just a journey. It's how we choose to look at things. We're all on a journey, and this is part of the journey. And so staying the course, turning things over, letting go of the results helps us to be present there's that word again, that helps us to be present in the journey, right now, right here, this present moment, instead of thinking about when this is over with when the pandemic's over, when this is over, when this month's over, when this year's over. I choose to be present in the journey right here, right now. And the only way to be present right here, right now is to use every single tool I have to create calmness, which calmness creates clarity, listening to our heart instead of our head. And with clarity, with clarity comes a whole freedom. Prosper is another word for freedom, prosperity, freedom. If you're interested in anything I had to share, any tips and tools that I can offer you for calmness, clarity, and prosperity, I invite you to either join my Patreon account or go to alaskatracy.com, where you can get on Visions to Profits. You can see what the community looks like. If you're a woman, you can join Visions to Profits membership, or you can join a free community called the Women's Success Community on Facebook. If you're a man and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I want to do a vision map, go ahead and book a Right Fit call on my website and we'll have a conversation and we can line out exactly what it looks like to get your plan completed. Life is short. We get one life. The more calmness that we can invite into our lives, the clearer our lives will become, and the more we'll be able to prosper, to have that freedom from within. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. It has been truly an honor to share it with you. It's real, it's raw, it's reality, it's life. I feel like if I were to see that moose again, I would love to give him a hug because he's brought so many teachers and people and help me shed so many layers that were really sticking to me. And I'm so grateful for that moose. I did get charged a couple weeks ago again, and I was able to stand in faith instead of fear and blow a whistle that I had around my neck and hold Chansey by my side. And that moose wandered off after several times running at me. And I felt fearless. And an intuitive that I just did a podcast episode on that's coming up, Linda Roberts. She is a healer. And she told me to embrace the moose totem animal, which I've always thought the moose were my spirit animals. And Mother Moose hung with us the other day as we painted the deck. She was on the other side of our fence, and she was there the whole evening that we painted. And I talked to her, and I wished her well, and I embraced her energy. Life is a gift. Thanks for being a part of my journey. I appreciate each and every one of you. Remember, click the subscribe button, share with your friends, and please comment if this has made a difference. Thanks so much. Bye.